Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Open Book Entrepreneur. I'm really thrilled that we have Matt Coffey here with us today. He's an amazing musician and coach, and he's rocking stages and also improving businesses on massive scale. So, Matt, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. The only way I could introduce myself is probably, if I wanted to do it right, would be grab one of these guitars and do a huge chord swing and just go and knock the microphone over while I'm screaming hello. Uh, you know, as a long-term CEO, and I think that when I say long-term, this has been 15 years since I started a company back when I wouldn't participate in the corporate structure anymore. And it took me a long time to get to where I am today. And that's what I was going to say is that it's almost like it takes, as they say, what ACDC says, it's a long way to the top if you want to be, not only in rock and roll, but if you want to have a really thriving business and grow a business. So doing this, as a business owner, I've had a multi-million-dollar business. I've sold that business. It made the Inc. 5000. As a CEO, I now do coaching and consulting, helping other companies grow, and I've had some success with that. And obviously, in the music side, I've got some great stories on the music side where we're working with national acts, and I'm working on a new album to come out, and we've had national airplay and warmed up for my heroes. So I think kind of combining those three things of, understanding the nuances around becoming a thriving business operator and understanding coaching and the complexity around mindset, and then creativity on the music side. So those are the three things. If you say, hey, that's what Matt Coffey is. He is a coach, a consultant, a musician, frontman, and a CEO that has worked in the trenches for real for the last 15 years, helping other businesses do what they need to do, which is to grow revenue and profits and become successful.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for that introduction. So those are sort of like three different niches, three different industries and stuff. So what actually inspired you to get into those?
Well, I think if you took the first piece of this, which is the CEO story, I worked as a corporate drone for many years. I know it may not seem it, but I'm older. I really sort of started my career in my 20s after I got out of college and went right into the corporate machine and worked for the traditional larger companies. The last role I had was with Sprint T-Mobile, running a $50 million territory and really in a juggernaut of political challenges to try and continue that career. I sort of decided at one point to just tell my bosses to go stuff it, because I was so tired of the political silliness that to me was just ridiculous. And so that experience, though, put me into production right away, to becoming a consultant, because I could take what I learned from the corporate world and then transfer it to building my own business. So that sort of grew. And again, it took a long time, but, after a while, I figured out how to get to 7 figures and then, grow quickly. And then I was able to sell the business. As far as the coaching side, I think that's always been a part of me because I've always tried to be helpful. And I think naturally people have come to me, especially ever since I sold the business last year. They are looking for help. And I've always done coaching and consulting on the side, just as being a nice person, and I'm probably nice to a fault, which, to some degree, I think in its essence is sort of why coaching and consultant fits with me well, is that I do feel sort of an obligation to give back the lessons that I learned. And so I've been helping some clients really with interworking their business, and that's all sides of it: sales, marketing, operations, HR, helping really develop some I would say success stories that to me are pretty substantial. Sort of now looking at potentially even an 8-figure a success story that I'm working on. to help a business grow from zero to sort of really a 10 million plus. Then, music wise, I've always been interested in that ever since I was a young kid. I played in bar bands when I was in college. And then after I moved to the New York City area, I got established down here, reestablished with some of my musician friends, and we've been able to play some really exciting events and shows, and had some great audiences. Even this last weekend was another pinnacle achievement for me to be in front of a sizable audience and a sold out show. So lots of fun stuff on that side, and that's just because of my proclivity to really like to kick ass in general and not allow anything else. And people know this about me, is that I really don't have a filter, and I love to do what I like to do. And so if I enjoy it, I'm going to, maximize that value. So the audiences love the fact that to have an energetic front man at my age is pretty interesting, because there's very few of us left.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And then also in terms of, obviously, you had this huge success of selling your business, exiting your business at 7 figures. So what's one major tip that you would give like other entrepreneurs that are sort of like trying to grow their business from either 0, 5, 6 figures to 7 figures?
Or 8. Yeah. So I would suggest start with the end in mind. And I wish I had taken this advice maybe 5 years into the business. I probably should have started to think about my exit. I think when I started to exit the business, I made some challenging mistakes that I would have never have made if I had started getting, I think, involved in the selling of the business quite earlier. Even though I started 2 years in advance of selling my business, I actually started in 2022 to sell my business. I got it out into production. I really think if you want to achieve something special and you're really serious, you should think about how you're going to sell the business as you develop it and what you want to get to and your goals, and then come up with your strategy. Because that's what sort of hampered me, I think, in the mid level of my business when I had crossed the 7 figures threshold. I really wasn't thinking about selling it until I started to realize, like, well, hey, wait a minute, like, where does this end? And what's my next journey? And that should have been probably started, again, you look at the lifespan of building a business. Really, at the beginning, I should have been thinking about where I wanted to end up. And I think it's difficult for people to even posture that conversation, because it's difficult as you start a business to even make revenue and start profit. But if you have the end in mind, you kind of have a goal to get to. And that was something that stopped me a lot of times, was when I was with my team and saying, like, where are we going? What's our plan? Like, yeah, you could think about the next month, you could think about the next week, but it was like, where are we going? Well, it finally ended up going where it wanted to go, which is it got to a buyer.
Nice, nice. I mean, what is really challenging, and I find this with a lot of my clients, and sometimes even in my own business, because I'm also a business and mindset coach, and I help a lot of businesses. And what I see a lot of businesses are actually challenged by is you really put yourself into the business and you give your everything into the business, and then you become like a part of the business, a major part of the business. Now, differentiating yourself from the business, that becomes a huge problem. So do you have any tips on how people can do that, how they can actually step aside and grow the business without them being the main engine, or without them being the main sort of investment in the business?
Yes. And that's what was the way that I got to sell the business, because I eventually was removed from the business. So depends on your skill sets. But the general rule of thumb is you have to exit your name of every space on the org chart inevitably, right? So a lot of businesses are run by someone who's a good salesperson or good operations person. or a good marketing person or whatever their skill is, and then they hire, but they still end up doing roles. So inevitably, I was every position on the org chart. I was HR, I was the financial person, I was the salesperson, I was the marketing person, I was the operations person, I was the customer service person, and on and on and on. And as I hired in behind me, I removed myself from the org chart. And inevitably, as I put a COO now running the business for me, I was then removed finally from every single position after I got to the final sort of, let's say, curtain before I sold the company, which was that I was not involved in anything except for, sort of like an overseer, a chairman coming in to see what was going on with the company. And that's the key to selling a company, is being completely removed from the operation, the sales, marketing, everything. Once that happens, then you have a company and you are a business owner, not a employee.
Yeah, very nice. And also another question is obviously, how did you manage to find this COO that you could trust, that he can sort of run the company instead of you?
Well, in my case, the person came up through the company, started as an account manager. She then went to director of operations, and then went to a VP of operations, and then sort of what I would call a COO, or a general manager. Either way, you kind of look at it. It's someone who can run the company without my needed input. And that took, 5 years, but I think at the end of the day, you could do it a lot faster. It just depends on the person's skill set and their motivations. It just so happens that my COO was grooming herself to take over the company and then eventually bought it. So it wasn't planned that way because I had several buyers that were ready to take over the company anyways. She just made the best cash offer that I had from all the buyers. So I said, okay, you've got the cash, then we can do a deal.
Very nice. Yeah, that worked out really well. And then also you sort of like developed this business with your, like not the business, but if you can tell us a little bit more about what do you do with the band and how is that going now?
Sure. I think if you look at the lifespan of where I generally found interest in music, which was when I was in high school, like many kids, I had friends that were musicians or want to be musicians. I don't think anybody really becomes a true musician unless they're some unbelievably talented person in high school. But as we sort of get, I think, into positions of having to deal with life, uh, you know, you as someone who's done this for a long time, and I'm saying like it's been like pretty much 40 years of playing. Um, I've held all sorts of roles in bands. I've been a lead guitarist. I've been a rhythm guitarist. I've been a singer. I've been a lead singer. I've been a background singer. I've been a um, uh, sort of all-in-one person, which is now what I do. So I think as I kind of got my ability to think about what would make sense for me as a um, person who's involved in this sort of what I would say uh, interesting creative environment, I've thought of myself as a songwriter more than anything else. And I know that becomes sort of unique to many folks that are out there who are in this particular position, because many of the events, venues, festivals, they're all looking for people playing cover songs, meaning that, not your own material. But we've somehow, and over a period of time of writing 100+ songs, been able to now coordinate writing catchy tunes that people don't even know that there are songs. They're singing along to them sometimes when we're playing. They have no idea that there are songs because they've gotten to a certain point where I've understood the human nature of like how to write something that I like and the audience likes. And that takes a lot of road testing, as I might say, So I think from the band side, I've started to work with some of my heroes, and this is sort of where I think the road meets the rubber, or rubber meets the road, which is that now that I've started to work with real, like, traveling, touring musicians in songwriting, I've come up with more ideas to kind of get things into production faster and quicker. So I've been able to compress the time to write, record, and deploy. So it's interesting now that, being able to play, record, and write with some of the, what I would say, national heroes to me, has been fantastic. And even now, this weekend that we were able to warm up and share a stage with a national touring, group. And I think that that's when it becomes interesting, because you're starting to see, like, I'm starting to see the edges of where, when we can connect with audiences, it's very much similar to when you can have a shared experience that is transmitting. So, it really does relate back to business in a way, because I think about the fact that when you're speaking with someone, or when you're having a conversation with them and registering psychologically and logically and emotionally with them at the same time, there is some attunement to accepting the message. And I've noticed that that's, kind of, as you say, like, the business of music is really about the acceptance of the message, and the understanding that its nature is omnipresent among everything. And so that's why a lot of the classic rock songs still to this day are played on the radio, and because they've connected. And I think that connection is what I've always looked for in this business, not to try and play somebody else's music, but to play my own, where I can easily connect with people and, again, entertained while giving message.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And then also, when we were before we started recording, you mentioned that you have a number of different goals for your businesses and for your band. So can you share some of those? Like, what are your goals for next 3 to 5 years going forward?
Well, I'll tell you what my goals are for this year. I don't have a 3 to 5 year goal, because I can't really assume and be aware of that yet. I can really concentrate on stuff I can do this year, and then sure, I could get an idea of 3 to 5 years, but actually it's a little bit difficult. I've always been pragmatic about this, which is that I think you've got to look at near term and midterm goals, and long term is nice. I mean, there's some very large long term things I'd like to see happen, but there's a lot of little pieces that need to be put in place even for those to get there. And so if you looked at what I'm trying to do, so I just sold my business literally months ago. I've rebuilt. So I'll give you the goals in order, just, and try and go through them briefly. I've created a team in the last couple of months, and now we are doing 1,000 pieces of content per month for us, to get my brand out there. So my first thing is to build my brand. Physically, I'm starting to culminate some of the musical stuff into my brand, to kind of, as I said before, mix what I would say coaching, consulting. It's even more than that. I'll explain it as sort of living louder, which is being physically also available. And I think that that comes from being clear about your physical attributes as well. And I spent a lot of time reshaping my body with the right elements to get it to be a point where I can be active in my late 50s, just as much as my peers are in their 20s. In fact, the doctor said I had the testosterone of a very hyper 20-year-old, which I thought was pretty good, because that's a tough thing to do in your upper 50s. But If you do the right activities, and again, this is all sort of a spec of my Living Louder strategy, which is that we really don't have a lot of time if you look at it from a perspective of a 50-year-old plus person to really conquer the things that a young man could. So now I'm attempting to have those elements of the goals of healthy living and exuberant living as part of my strategy for most of what I would say my top 10 goals. The other thing is to get my business immediately to $50,000 a month. Again, just starting over in a couple of months to get to 50 grand a month has been my near-term goal. We're already at about 35,000 a month between the team, and that's growing steadily every month. My plan is to also open an academy where I'll be teaching, and you can go to a community where you can engage. That's going to culminate with a book. I'm starting the book next week with a outsourced book company that I'm hired to help me get that out the door quickly. I've actually already written it. I have 160 pages already written. I just need someone to help me kind of organize it and put it in production. The other things from a goal perspective, from the music side, I'm looking to get another album out, or at least an EP out this year. Working with, again, national artists that are traveling, that are real touring artists that are giving me what they see. Again, it's almost like I'm seeing into the people who are seeing the larger extent of 10,000 plus seat arenas, and they're helping me guide how I want to write my material based off of what they can see and what crowds appreciate. And then if you look at the coaching and consulting side of it, I'm looking to also potentially do some revenue share opportunities, along with bringing on some consulting clients that have been pretty interesting. Again, as I said before, I've now entered the framework where I'm looking to actually bring someone to 8 figures in a business. So those are the main goals. There's other smaller goals that would involve family and personal items, which I don't think people are that interested in. But I think for me, the real strategy has been really to be in top shape. And I think that if you can start with that, that's sort of like a prerequisite to have the other goals fall through. And I've already accomplished one significant goal already this year. It's already, 3 weeks into the year, and I've had one substantial goal already hit. So that was a fantastic win this last weekend. So I think for people who are listening to this, what would benefit them is to do what I call the Living Louder plan, which is to align your mantra, which is your stated, what I would consider summary of the year of what you're trying to accomplish, and what it means to you and what it means to you as a person, and then develop 10 solid planned events that you need to accomplish for the year. And doesn't have to be broken into a million steps, but at least break it down to a couple steps and read that every single day as part of your strategy. So there are 4 things that I know on a daily basis that I need to do in order to score myself on whether or not I am doing what I've said I wanted to come out to do, which is I need to read through my goals every day. I need to do an aerobic exercise. Even though it's 11 degrees Fahrenheit out today, I will be outside running, jogging, or something. I do need to get to the gym today, and I do need to put 2 hours of practice on the guitar or singing or songwriting today as well. Now, I do those 4 things every single day. Life for me is in production on the paths of the goals that I'm trying to do, because I know that those 4 things are the keys to development of my business, my life, and my clandestine, which is a great word, results that I will have for 2025.
Wonderful. Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story and also for being an inspiration to our listeners and to people watching us. So thank you for being a guest. And yeah, thank you all for listening and watching this episode. And see you in the next episode.